Welcome to the Deep Dive. And just a quick note, this exploration into financial innovation, it's brought to you by Access Softech, the premier provider of digital banking solutions. So today, we're sinking our teeth into something that feels, well, surprisingly stale, actually. The basic act of moving money around. I mean, we've seen these huge leaps in infrastructure, right? You've got FedNow, real-time payments, stablecoins making things easier.
Yeah, the rails are faster.
Exactly. But like outside of those specific things, when did the actual experience of transferring money really change for, the average person? Feels like a while.
It really does. That's a great observation. And, our thinking here suggests that stagnation, at least on the user interaction side, has kind of been the norm.
Right.
But like they say, there's always a better mousetrap out there somewhere. So our mission today really is to unpack this new idea, this philosophy called smart transfers.
Smart transfers, okay.
Yeah, and it seems to fundamentally redefine how a user, their bank, and, well, the whole transfer process work together.
Okay, let's zero in on that then. What's the core problem? Like, what's wrong with how we move money right now?
Well, the central flaw, I think, is this disconnect between what the person wants to achieve and what they actually have to do.
Okay.
So when you or I go to make a transfer, we have a result in mind, right? But the system forces us to guess the specific input, the amount, the timing maybe.
You have to manually figure it out.
Exactly. You're
Yeah.
constantly intervening manually for something that feels like it should be an automated financial goal. It's kind of backward.
Yeah, I think everyone listening gets that sort of manual anxiety check before a big bill is due. The rent example you mentioned earlier, that really hits home.
It's perfect, isn't it? Because the goal isn't just transfer $1,500.
Right.
The real goal is making sure there's enough money, whatever that amount turns out to be, in the checking account so the rent payment clears when it's supposed to.
Yeah. Avoiding the bounce fee, making sure it's paid on time. That's what matters.
That's the metric, the result. You don't actually care how the money got there, just that the outcome is achieved. Paying on time, no bounce.
Okay, so the old way forces us to specify the amount, the dollars and cents, the how. What does this smart transfer idea demand instead?
It demands the what, the result.
Ah.
And that's a really foundational shift, I think. Instead of you telling it, move X dollars, you tell it the desired outcome you want to accomplish.
Like make sure my rent gets paid.
Basically, yeah. Or ensure this account has enough to cover rent by the first. The system then has to figure out the right transfer, maybe even the right timing.
That sounds, well, it sounds great, but complex. Where does the system get the smarts, the intelligence for that? Does this mean giving the bank like way more access to my spending data? Is there a privacy thing here?
That is the critical question, absolutely. And yes, it relies heavily on, predictive modeling, secure data access stuff you have to permit, of course.
Oh.
The intelligence comes from synthesizing data. It needs to understand your typical income, your regular bills, when those dates are coming up.
So it's calculating buffers and things.
Exactly. It calculates the needed buffer and acts on its own, moving the focus away from you manually calculating the transfer amount. You just define the result you need.
And that extension is really important, isn't it? Because it takes this from just being like a defensive thing, avoiding fees,
Right.
to being more of an offensive tool, something to actually achieve financial goals. You mentioned this applies more broadly, like savings and investing too.
Oh, definitely. And what's fascinating there is how it changes something like savings discipline.
How so?
Well, instead of you setting up a rigid, say, $100 transfer every single Friday, rain or shine.
Yeah, which you might have to adjust anyway if funds are low.
Precisely. Instead, you specify the desired state. Something like, keep my emergency fund at 10% of my total liquid assets. The system then dynamically adjusts the transfers based on your actual real-time balance changes.
So you become more of a strategist, setting the goal.
And less of a clerk who has to log in every week just to move the money.
Exactly.
Okay, so wrapping this up then. What's the big takeaway here for the future of digital banking? It seems like the real innovation isn't just faster payments.
No, the speed and infrastructure are crucial, but they're table stakes now.
Right. So the innovation is this shift in focus. From the mechanical action, the transfer itself, to defining and demanding the desired financial outcome.
It's about results, not just repeating manual steps. That's the core idea.
A focus on results, not repetition. I like that.
And maybe this leads to a final thought for you listening. If we actually stop specifying all the tiny mechanical steps in our banking, and instead start just demanding the final result we want, whether that's paying the rent reliably or hitting a savings target, how much mental energy, how much headspace could we free up from that constant routine financial upkeep?
That's a really interesting question to leave people with. Something to mull over.